While this is taking place, Britney Griner comes out and says, I am so sick and tired of the NBA, WNBA. It used to be a peaceful, small little thing. Now there's crowds screaming, hollering. This is disruptive. It's not allowing us to play the game. This is her quote. I don't know if you saw this or not when she gave that.
Patrick Bet-David just delivered the most brutal reality check in podcast history. Brittney Griner made some wild comments about Caitlin Clark and racial undertones that had everyone talking.
From 41. What the hell is going on with WNBA that they cannot handle all this attention that they're getting, as well as the hate and anger?
But PBD wasn't having any of it. He reminded Griner about her time in Russian prison and completely destroyed her complaints about fan noise. The comeback was absolutely ruthless, which was more satisfying. PBD reminding Griner about the Russian prison, or watching him explain why she should be grateful for any attention the WNBA gets.
I'd have fun with you. Brittney Griner, what she says, right there, watch this. Every time we play her, there's this commotion, like this loud rumbling from the stands. Turns out it's people, thousands of them, just sitting there.
Let's be completely honest about what happened on Patrick Bet-David's podcast, because Brittney Griner just got served a reality check of her lifetime. While she was out here complaining about crowd noise and making subtle racial comments about Caitlin Clark, PBD was busy reminding her about some uncomfortable truths that she apparently forgot during her time away from basketball. The whole situation started with Griner's absolutely ridiculous comments about how the WNBA used to be this peaceful, quiet place where you could bring your laptop and get work done during games. Think about that for a second. A professional athlete complaining that fans are too loud and engaged during sporting events. The audacity is just mind-blowing, but it gets so much worse when you consider the context of who's saying this.
It used to be a chill, quiet place. You could bring your laptop and relax, maybe even get a little work done. But now it's like there's large gatherings of people watching us from the stands. Some of them are yelling crazy shit about what they're seeing, putting unfair pressure on us to score like we're there for their entertainment. You are. The whole thing is toxic. I saw a guy with his daughter in the crowd, both of them yelling, couldn't hear what they were saying. Exactly, but it was either my performance or some light racism. But
Griner literally said that WNBA games used to be chill and quiet, and now there are these large gatherings of people watching from the stands, some of them yelling about what they're seeing. She complained about unfair pressure perform, like they're not there for entertainment. Here's a news flash, Brittney. You absolutely are there for entertainment. That's literally what professional sports are about. But the most disturbing part of her comments was when she mentioned seeing a father and daughter in the crowd yelling. She couldn't hear exactly what they were saying, but assumed it was either about a performance or some light racism. Yes, light racism. That's the phrase she used to describe fans cheering at a basketball game. The fact that her mind immediately went to racial motivation for a crowd noise shows exactly where her head is at regarding this whole situation. Patrick Bet-David didn't hold back when addressing these comments. And honestly, someone needed to say what he said. PBD reminded everyone that Griner was literally in a Russian prison not too long ago. She was locked up in a foreign country facing serious charges and had to be rescued through a prisoner exchange that involved releasing a known arms dealer nicknamed the Merchant of Death.
Brittney Griner was in a Russian prison. You would think that somebody who is now free, back in America on home soil, would not have too much to complain about. Especially something like this.
The prisoner exchange that brought Griner home involved trading Victor Bout, a man who was convicted of conspiracy to kill Americans and providing aid to terrorists. That's who the United States government released to get Brittney Griner back.
It doesn't matter what sport you are. It doesn't matter what sport you pick. That's how fans act in every arena. In every arena. So, and then when you, clearly she's not remembering who they let out to get her back.
The Merchant of Death.
The Merchant of Death. An arms dealer that wanted to kill American citizens.
Her response to being free, back on American soil, playing the sport she loves in front of fans who are excited to watch, is a complaint about noise levels at PBD's point was absolutely brutal but completely valid. You would think someone who experienced imprisonment in a foreign country would have a completely different perspective on freedom and opportunity. The fact that Griner finds crowd enthusiasm disturbing rather than energizing shows how disconnected she's become from reality and gratitude. The timing of these comments makes them even more ridiculous, because they came right as the WNBA is experiencing unprecedented growth in popularity and revenue. The league is projecting $1 billion in value for the first time in its 25-year history. And that growth is almost entirely due to the attention Caitlin Clark has brought to women's basketball. But here's where Griner's comments become particularly insulting. She's complaining about the very thing that's making her and every other WNBA player more money than they've ever made before. The crowds, the noise, the enthusiasm. All of that translates directly into increased revenue, better television deals, and higher salaries for everyone in the league. The racial undertones in Griner's comments are especially problematic because they reveal the real issue some players have with Clark's success. It's not actually about basketball ability or individual performance. It's about the fact that a young white player is generating the kind of mainstream attention that black players in the league never receive. Despite years of excellence that PBD addressed this dynamic head-on by acknowledging that Clark's race probably does contribute to some of the attention she receives. But he also pointed out that she's genuinely talented enough to deserve that attention regardless. Clark finished fourth in MVP voting during her second year in the league. She plays an exciting style that translates well to television, and she has a competitive fire that casual fans want to see.
It says they want to get paid more. They're saying this year they're going to make $1 billion. That's what they're saying, okay? For the first time ever. Now that Caitlin Clark is hurt for 2 weeks, did you see ticket prices? Insane. Let me read you the ticket prices. After Caitlin Clark's been hurt for 2 weeks. All right? So let's go through this. Caitlin Clark absence is having an immediate impact beyond the court. According to data shared by Yahoo Sports via TickPick, prices for 2 specific Indiana Fever away games against the Chicago Sky and the Washington Mystics dropped sharply after Clark was sidelined. Before the injury, the lowest ticket available for Fever's matchup in Chicago was $86. For the game in Washington, fans needed at least $41 to get in. After the news of Clark's absence, those get-in prices fell to $25 from $86 and $14.
The ticket price data that PBD referenced during the podcast tells the whole story about who's really driving the WNBA's success. When Clark got injured, ticket prices for Fever games crashed immediately. Chicago tickets went from $86 to $25. Washington tickets dropped from $41 to $14. Those aren't small adjustments. Those are market collapses that happen when the main attraction disappears. Griner's complaints about crowd noise become even more absurd when you consider that most WNBA games were played in essentially empty arenas the first 24 years of the league's existence. Players were comfortable with that because there was no pressure, no expectations, and no accountability to paying customers. Clark's arrival changed all of that, and some players clearly weren't ready for the adjustment. The fact that Griner described the old WNBA as a place where you could bring your laptop and get work done perfectly encapsulates why the league was irrelevant for so long. These players treated games like casual pickup runs rather than professional entertainment that people pay money to watch. That mentality is exactly why the WNBA lost money for 25 consecutive years. PBD's response was particularly effective because he didn't let Griner hide behind victim narratives or racial grievances. He forced the conversation back to objective reality. She was rescued from international imprisonment. She's now free to play basketball in America for more money than the WNBA has ever generated. And her response is a complaint about fan enthusiasm. The comparison to other sports was especially damaging to Griner's argument. PBD pointed out that crowd noise and intensity are part of every professional sport. Players in the NBA, NFL, MLB, and NHL all deal with hostile road environments and passionate fans. That's considered part of the job, not some unusual burden that requires special accommodation. Griner's mental framework seems to be that WNBA players deserve all the benefits of professional athletics, the salaries, the recognition, the platform, without any of the pressure or expectations that come with entertaining paying customers. That's not how professional sports work in any league or any country. The Russian prison angle that PBD brought up was particularly brutal because it highlighted how tone-deaf Griner's complaints really are. Here's someone who experienced actual oppression, actual limitations on her freedom, actual consequences for her actions, and she's using that platform to complain about Americans being excited about basketball games. Patrick Bet-David also addressed the broader resentment that some WNBA players feel toward Clark's success. He acknowledged that it's understandable for players to feel frustrated when they see someone getting attention that they feel they deserved. But he also pointed out that this dynamic exists in every sport when transcendent talents emerge. The Michael Jordan comparison was particularly relevant because Jordan faced similar resentment from other players who felt he was getting too much attention and credit. The Detroit Pistons literally created the Jordan rules to try to beat him up physically and mentally. But that resentment existed because Jordan's impact was undeniable, not because the media was artificially inflating his importance.
And she wreaks havoc. She's the Rookie of the Year. She's 4th in the league in MVP voting. 4th in the league, her rookie year.
Wow.
Outstanding. She's like Steph Curry. She can pull up from anywhere. You understand? She has that kind of capability. Didn't win a national championship. Lost to LSU one year. Lost to South Carolina another year. But she's outstanding and clearly worthy of being the number 1 overall pick. And what I was saying to everybody is ride the wave. Rising tide lifts all boats. The girl is spectacular. It's not like she's not a scrub. She's not only can play, she's a star caliber player who draws this attention. And maybe it's because that fan base that she has and her being a young white lady.
1063 with Clark. The situation is similar. The attention she receives is based on measurable impact. Ticket sales, television ratings, merchandise revenue, social media engagement. These aren't subjective opinions or media narratives. They're objective financial metrics that prove her value to the league. At Griner's complaints about racial undertones and crowd reactions are particularly problematic because they assume the worst possible motivations from fans who are simply excited about basketball. The assumption that father-daughter pairs cheering at games must be engaging in racism shows a worldview that's looking for problems rather than appreciating opportunities. The podcast discussion revealed how unprepared some WNBA players were for mainstream success. For 25 years, they operated in a bubble where criticism was minimal, expectations were low, and accountability was practically non-existent. Clark's arrival brought real scrutiny, real pressure, and real consequences for performance. PBD's point about gratitude was especially powerful because it highlighted the stark contrast between Griner's experience in Russian prison and her current complaints about American basketball fans. Someone who truly understood what she went through should be celebrating every moment of freedom, every opportunity to compete, and every fan who chooses to spend money watching her play. The financial projections for the WNBA are entirely dependent on maintaining the kind of fan interest that Clark has generated. If players like Griner succeed in driving away casual fans with complaints about enthusiasm and accusations of racism, the league will quickly revert to its previous model of empty arenas and financial losses. The timing of Griner's comments was particularly unfortunate because they came right as the WNBA was experiencing its best financial performance in league history. Instead of embracing the opportunity and building on the momentum, she chose to focus on perceived problems rather than obvious benefits. Patrick Bet-David's business background gave him the perfect perspective to address these issues. He understands that customer satisfaction and fan engagement drive revenue, which pays player salaries. Complaining about customers being too enthusiastic is like complaining about having too much money. It reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of how professional sports economics work. The comparison to other entertainment industries was particularly relevant. Musicians don't complain about crowds being too loud at concerts. Actors don't complain about audiences being too engaged during performances. The entire point of professional entertainment is to create excitement and emotional investment from paying customers. That Griner's worldview seems to be that WNBA players should receive all the benefits of increased popularity without any of the scrutiny or pressure that comes with mainstream attention. That's not realistic in any professional sport or entertainment industry. The racial dynamics that Griner brought up are particularly sensitive because they touch on real issues within American society. But using those dynamics to deflect criticism or explain away market realities does a disservice to everyone involved. Clark's success is based on measurable impact, not racial preferences. PBD's response was effective because he acknowledged the complexity of these issues while also holding Griner accountable for her tone-deaf complaints. He didn't dismiss racial concerns entirely, but he also didn't let them become an excuse for ignoring objective reality about fan engagement and league economics. The prisoner exchange context that PBD brought up was particularly powerful because it reminded everyone of the stakes involved in Griner's situation. The United States government literally traded a convicted arms dealer to secure her freedom. That level of international negotiation and compromise demonstrates how valuable her freedom really is. Griner's response to that freedom, complaining about crowd noise and assuming racist motivations from excited fans, shows a fundamental lack of perspective and gratitude. Someone who truly appreciated their situation will be celebrating every opportunity, to play basketball in front of enthusiastic crowds. The broader message that PBD delivered was about appreciation and perspective. The WNBA has struggled for relevance and financial sustainability for 25 years. Now that it finally has mainstream attention and growing revenue, players should be embracing the opportunity rather than complaining about the very things that make success possible. Patrick Bet-David didn't hold back because someone needed to say what many people were thinking about Griner's comments. The combination of tone deafness, ingratitude, and racial assumptions was too much to ignore, especially coming from someone who should understand the value of freedom and opportunity better than most people. Patrick Bet-David just reminded Brittney Griner why gratitude matters more than grievances. While she was complaining about crowd noise and making racial assumptions, PBD delivered the reality check she desperately needed. The Russian prison reference was brutal but necessary. Hit that like button if you think PBD was right, and subscribe for more unfiltered truth